quilt making? Was it just a good, talent that our so-called Black American people had, or was there something more to it? They made amazing things like this. But on this .gov source, they talk about the Underground Railroad quilt codes. I was already questioning it myself because I just randomly saw this video.
They would hang on the fence or a door with this pattern. And this pattern is called a monkey wrench. And it said to the slaves, get your belongings together. We'll be going out with the conductor soon. They would leave that up for a little while, and then they would take it down a few days maybe. And they put this one up. This one is called the drunkard's path. It said, we will follow the drunkard's path. It will make it difficult for slave catchers to catch us. And also, slaves believe that evil spirits travel in a straight line. This is the bear's paw. We will follow bear tracks. You will find food, berries, honey, and maybe a place to stay.
No, you heard that right. One of those was a symbol that says, hey, get your stuff together, we're going to be leaving. The next one was a symbol that says, follow the jumper's path. Go in a zigzag, you niggas. And so you don't get caught. Okay? Oh, whatever. And then the last one she showed was follow the bear tracks. So somehow they made bear tracks to some random area where you might find shelter and food. Now, I got questions. You mean to tell me that somehow universally throughout the entire southern United States, all of these so-called black people who couldn't read and write according to this document I'm going to show you, somehow told everybody what these symbols were, knew what these symbols were. They all quilted them and they all had meanings and they all knew what those meanings were. They all had bear tracks leading them somewhere. They knew about the monkey wrench to get. Okay, I can understand maybe the monkey wrench. Hey, get ready. A get ready symbol that's universal, but I still don't know how it will propagate throughout the entire South. When you just I'm seeing people like this, and making these quilts. Now I have seen them in a couple of those symbols in some of these people's quilts, but my thing is this: how do they know across the whole South what these symbols mean? And those symbols ain't even, they're supposed to take you somewhere. Let's read the document. First part talks about secret messages from quilts, patterns, help enslaved people escape the boards of captivity, whatever, the bonds of captivity. This one talks about how slaves could not read or write. It was illegal, blah, blah, blah. And, basically they would just memorize things. And so they started coming up with these codes. And then it says codes were created by both blacks and whites, helping the slaves, the blacks, included other slaves, former slaves, whatever. Most quilt patterns are African roots. They had to tie in some kind of African roots because it's funny. When you look up Africans making quilt, I'm like, I know you're not about to play my people as if we ain't been making quilts on our own, ain't had nothing to do with Africa. Look at these quilts from these random ass Africans. You gonna compare that to this? To my folks? Are you serious? Don't play with us. And it's even more funny because the talks here, it says quilt codes. Let's say it is interesting to note that in Africa, the making of textiles was done by males. It was not until the slaves arrived in North America that this tax fell on the females. Ain't that kind of funny? Because you've never, ever seen too many times that I know of a so-called Black American man quilting, okay? Not to say that it doesn't happen, but for them to actually put that in there, I don't know what the heck that is. To me, it sounds like a bunch of BS. Up here on this .gov source, it talks about those same things: the monkey wrench, the star, crossroads, wagon wheel, same little things. That's why it's starting to sound like propaganda. Like, that's all y'all got? Everybody? I thought there should be multiple symbols. Right here, it shows those same symbols. Crossroads, bear's paw. And it tells you what those symbols mean. But it's just like what those others said, what the lady just said. But I'm going to show you another video.
Thousands gained access to freedom. Designs communicating the path to hope. If you look closely at this quilt, you'll notice these vibrant and detailed colors hold a deeper meaning.
The history tells about the symbolism of the struggle and various means by which those who were seeking freedom looked for signs for direction. And that particular piece represents that.
You may know Lois Hawthorne as a retired educator, but she now adds one more title to her many hats. Her hands crafted the historic Underground Railroad coats quilt. During the 3 years of needle, thread, and plenty of research, she learned the meaning slaves followed for a promised new beginning.
It allowed me to reflect. When I was in high school, we were taught Negro history by using a book by Carter G. Woodson. I felt a sense of fulfillment.
The Underground Railroad quilt is embedded with 12 codes, pictures, and shapes so an enslaved person would be aware of the area and where to head next. Here are a few. Monkey wrench. Slaves needed to gather tools on their journey to freedom. Crossroads. Directions to the main crossroad of Cleveland, Ohio. And North Star. Slaves were to follow the North Star to Canada and to freedom.
How in the hell is this supposed to tell me directions on how to get anywhere? Anywhere. You can say, hey, this patch means take this certain directions, this street to this street to this street to that street to that street. They would have to remember those streets. They would already know those streets. Why would you need this? But either way, it also depends on where you're coming from, right? Like this person's directions from his location is going to be completely different from somebody's directions coming from a different location to get the same point, right? And follow the North Star to Canada. So which street do I take? Are you serious? Is the land completely flat? Are we on the fucking ocean? You can follow the North Star on the ocean. It's nothing but water and path. You're on land. What do you mean follow the North Star? Don't get me wrong. You can at least tell you where north is. But do you understand? If you're in Texas and you're trying to find your pathway to get to Canada, that North Star ain't gonna help you for shit. Are you serious? Do you know how many times you're gonna get blocked? You're gonna have to go west and east and this and that and find roads. You can't just walk through forest all the way north. You also gotta ask other questions. What do they mean? Like one of the people said that they would sling this over and they would show a message and have it like the lady said first. They would have it show a message for a day. So first of all, how do all of these people know this message? Propagated kids, people, whatever. But on top of that, these basic ass instructions is not going to get you to some underground railroad. It's not even going to get you up the street. One said follows the bear's path to get you some food or whatever. So is there somebody walking around with fake bare feet hitting the ground? You know what I'm saying? Or is there a real bear walking around with a real bear path making a path? Or do they got a bear as a goddamn pet and they walk around with the bear making bear's paths? The other one said go. This one right here says, hey, go in a zigzag pattern so you don't get caught. Also, spirits, evil spirits exist on a straight line path. Y'all don't even understand kind of how deep that really is, because a flat line path is almost like when you're flatline at a hospital. Like death occurs pretty much when, life ceases to move or fluctuate. And so my life moves in cycles. And I've heard that demons live within that single pathway. But long story short, regardless of that ain't got nothing to do. Ain't got nothing to do with helping me get out of my situation. Do you know how many directions I'm going to need? How many streets I'm going to have to go down that's either hidden off the main paths because I ain't trying to get seen because I'm going through the Underground Railroad, or something else? And then I'm going to, you know how many places, how many bear paths I'm going to have to find in order to get the food I need? You know what I'm saying? And shelter. I'm running out of time. These people be playing, dude. Playing.